Here I am. Should be all good. Should be all set up. One day I'll have a starting screen for my streams, and then I have a little time to prepare everything before I go live. One day I'll be a professional streamer. I'll have a professional look to my stream, but it's not this day. This day we do things the normal way. Hello MindB, welcome. How are you doing? Welcome everybody. I see that there is already 2 people watching. There was already somebody waiting the whole afternoon. Basically when I set up the notification at 1, they started waiting in the chat, in the stream thing. And now they're still there. I can see how many people are waiting for the stream to go live. I get that information. Anyway, how is everybody doing? As always, we're going to be listening to some of you guys' tracks. We already have a few submissions in here. Here I close the queue, so I believe this one should be listened to, but I think this person may have submitted his track again here, a newer version of the same track. It's a different name, but I don't know. Good on you. I'm doing well. I have to rant a little bit today. Maybe I'll get that out of the way first, because that is interesting. I have to, rant a little bit. I went to bed yesterday, leaving my PC on and uploading videos overnight. And when I came back, I guess I should show this first. Otherwise it doesn't really make sense. Let's get in here. This is what timelines used to look like inside of Premiere Pro, inside of my editing software. Right, you can see nice colors here, nice, easy on the eyes, gives you a lot of creativity. It's not offensive, the colors that they have, and all of the information is very small, all of that kind of stuff. It's very easy to look at. I went to bed with my timelines looking like this. I just rendered out the last video at like 12:30 at night, and I put them all up to upload, and so that I can schedule them for the next week and all of that stuff. I did mess up a little bit in that I thought I had another video scheduled, but I didn't. So it took me like a little bit longer than I would have wanted to get the new batch of videos ready and out and set up for scheduling and everything. But at least I went to bed with my timelines looking like this, looking nice, just giving you ample creativity. This morning I woke up to an update from Creative Cloud that told me that they changed the colors of elements on the timeline. Look at this. What is this? Look at these colors. Look at this timeline. This is terrible. How does anybody work like this? These are my shorts. Why are my shorts piss yellow? What is this? Somebody at Adobe, a designer at Adobe, put in, I guess, a request or something like that. Whatever they did, they said like, okay, we need to update the timeline. What if we combine piss yellow with the moldy kind of blue that you get on cheese that has gone bad? What if we do that? What if we give the people that kind of thing to look at when they're editing, as opposed to the colors that I showed before, which are just nice colors, which are just good to look at? And it's not like I guess it's not like they added new colors. This color over here used to be this green here. This is a nice green to look at. This is something that inspires you. This is something that is easy to look at. This is something that you can work with when you're trying to do a creative job. What is this? Why is it this yellow? This is terrible. Why do I have to work like this? Look at these timelines. This is I mean, I can open up other examples here. I have many. I guess that's the same one that is already open. But here, it's this weird kind of neon blue with this off dark purple with dark piss yellow with this as I said, moldy cheese kind of blue. Why? What's the point? There's probably more. Yeah, here there's more. But look at what this looks. This is not creative. Why do they make these updates? The way that the reason why I want to rant about this is because this is kind of like another one of those steps where I have to start thinking about just completely leaving Adobe software. I pay these people €20 a month. for me to edit the videos and for me to make the content that you guys see and that kind of stuff. 20 euros a month for this, right? And this is not the only thing. There's many things. Let me see if I can find some text so that I can show you another example of how ridiculously stupid this particular software is. Is this the one with the text? There's one of the projects that has some text in it, which I'll need to find. This might be... No, it's not that one. Might be this one. Oh, here. I think. Yes. So this has text in here. If you want to edit the text, right, you can see all of the text options up here. Let's alter, I guess it works now. For some reason, sometimes when you click here and you start altering it, it doesn't work. Maybe that is something that they updated in that last update. But another thing is, if I want to center this text, which I actually should have done, I guess, it's a little bit too late now, but I should have put this text maybe in the center and then a little bit lower. If you want to do that, you go to the essential graphics. But as you can see, it's not here. What you have to do is you have to click on text, and then in essential graphics, you can align things, right? Like I'm doing over here. You can put stuff in the center and whatnot. Why? Why do I have to go in here and select the text? Why can I not just select the clip and it just automatically puts all of the options that would be there if I click on this in here as well? This is the kind of design that is happening at Adobe. It feels that the software, that they never use it, I guess. They're not thinking about how does the software work when you're actually trying to edit in there and try to work fast and get your ideas in there. Because at the end of the day, editing, much like music production, is a creative endeavor, right? You want to be fast. You have an idea, oh, boom, I want to quickly implement it. And this is one of those many things that makes it so that your idea is slightly slower to be implemented. And all of that can build up frustrations over a long period of time. Here's another one. If I go to the shorts project over here, if you click on a short in the middle, let me close it real quick, it opens up. Very easy. Now, if I click over here, it opens up import file selection. I have no idea why this happens. But imagine that you're editing, right? You're doing your thing, yada, 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 click this, click that. Oh, I quickly need to open up that thing. I double click and then suddenly a window opens. You're out of your flow now. You're out of what you were trying to do because the software does something different than you expect. You have to click on the view for some reason. They're not thinking about, oh, somebody is editing, he's quickly going to move his mouse over there, he's going to click this element, maybe the thing that is already selected, or he's going to click in the vicinity of this thing. Let's just have that perform one action. Why is this a different action? Why is this not a right click action that you just import it or replace it or whatever it is trying to do? Why is that different? Right? All of those many frustrations. The one that I talked about a while ago during the editing stream is if I scroll here, if I zoom in and start scrolling, it scrolls the timeline. Very natural. If you scroll over here, it scrolls between projects. It's a little bit laggy because it needs to open up the different video, but okay, this is something that I can get by, right? But the amount of times that I've tried to scroll the timeline and instead move my mouse slightly higher and started scrolling videos only for the software to look like it's having a horrible malfunction and just completely take me out of my, the creative flow that we're all in when we're actually working on something creative. It is insane. There's no line in between here. There's nothing that differentiates this functionality with this functionality over here. And there's two functions here. So if I'm scrolling here, this is a different function than if I'm scrolling here. There should be something separating these two ideas. Honestly, for your workflow, just grab DaVinci Resolve. That is the issue. One of the many issues that you have when it comes to creative softwares is it doesn't really solve anything switching to a different software. And do I need to save any of this? I think I do, yeah. When it comes to creative software, we like to think that, oh, you can just switch to a different program. Oh, you can just switch to a different DAW. Like people say to me when it comes to Bitwig, right? Just switch to Bitwig if you don't like Ableton. But the problem is, I have built up muscle memory over years of using Ableton. I've built up muscle memory over years of doing Premiere Pro. UI feedback stream. This is more of a rant segment that you guys are getting for free today. I spent years, building up muscle memory, building up systems. I've put all of the systems in place that allow me to work as quickly as I do within this DAW. If I switch things around, then I'm losing all of that. I'm spending a lot more time getting the basics done. Anytime I want to do anything in DaVinci Resolve, which I do have installed on my PC, by the way, and I've tried to edit in it because this is not the first time that I've gotten frustrated with Premiere Pro. By far not. It's very bad. Premiere Pro is I think one of the worst pieces of software in the way that it's just designed, in the way that there's just this lack of attention to details on how the functionality of the program actually works. But switching to DaVinci Resolve means that all of the muscle memory that I have now built up over the many edits that I've done, I've immediately lost. If I want to cut something on the timeline and ripple delete, I have keyboard shortcuts that I know I can, without even, I guess, looking at the keyboard, I can put my fingers in such a way that I can immediately hit that shortcut. Right now I cannot really do that because, of course, the software isn't open and my microphone is in the way, which I was trying to do. But I always have my hands in the same place when I'm editing, and I can always quickly get the things done that I want to do. If I want to ripple delete something in DaVinci Resolve, I'll have to Google how to do that, and then slowly get accustomed to their way of doing it, and seeing what the keyboard shortcuts are, maybe changing the keyboard shortcuts over time to something that suits me better, all of that kind of stuff, right? My whole workflow, my whole way of working is based around the way that I've been doing it for many years in Premiere Pro. Most people don't really care about that, but for me, any time that I'm spending learning stuff, like learning a new DAW or learning a new editing software, is time that I'm not actually making content. It's time that I'm not actually writing music. It's time that I'm not actually working on products, the things that make me money, essentially. Because at the end of the day, I do have bills to pay. So that is a consideration that you have to have. I guess, imagine you're a taxi driver and they say, okay, you have had this car for years now. You have all of your things in there. You have your computer that tells you where to pick up people. You have your map that tells you where to go. You have, the gas pedal is in some place. The stick is in some place. The steering wheel is in some place. Now imagine that they give them a new car. And not just a new car in the sense that, okay, it may be a slightly different ride and stuff like that, but the steering wheel is on the roof. And the gas pedal is in the trunk. and the clutch is in front. Everything is in a completely different spot. That is essentially what switching a DAW or switching editing software is like. Taxi drivers say, "Are you talking to me?" And then imagine trying to give them that new car and expecting them to do the same work, to be as efficient as they were previously. It's not going to happen. And the same is true for me. So I'm kind of hamstruck or stuck with the softwares that I have now, because there's such a high cost to switching that it's really hard for me to justify it. As I said, I'm thinking just completely switching to Resolve, but I'm dreading that moment because I know that for a few months I'll be slower in my editing. I'll be slower with my working, and I have to figure out, is that worth it in regards to like the actual upgrade that I get. This is the whole point behind the Bitwig streams, by the way. And anytime that I'm testing Bitwig, that is what I'm testing for. Is there something in this workflow that is so much faster or so much better than my current workflow in Ableton that it's worth all of the time learning that DAW to get that one thing? So yeah, I could just grab a different piece of software or something like that, but that's not going to fix my issues. I just want the software that I'm using now to be better. Anyway, rant over. It's time for me to listen to your guys' music. I don't know if this person is here. Novice. I did see some Novice. This is Novice. Okay, yeah. One thing that I said, I guess, is this track the same track as this track over here? Because I usually start the feedback from the stuff that you submit, from the stuff that you guys submit when the queue is closed. So you guys can submit the whole week. You can submit 1 second after the feedback stream finishes or after the queue closes, and then I'll just continue going from there. So if that's not the case, if this is a different track than this one over here, then I'll just play it whenever we play it, and I'll start over here. Otherwise, I'll have to play this one first. They're 2 different tracks. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So then I guess we'll start with Novice 3030 over here with Impacit. I don't know what that means. Maybe a mashup between impact and acid, which could be cool as a title. Anyway, let's have a listen. As always, I hope volumes are okay, stuff like that. Let me know if that needs to be changed. Not really a fan of the kick and bass tonality here. The bass feels a little bit weak. It's not cleaned up, I think, in that there's definitely some bleeding happening into the bass, but I guess you're getting cut off here, and it's not showing up, but it's even bleeding into the kick technically. Okay, I'm not a fan of this hat. I'm not a fan of the snare. Stuff is just... I'm sorry to say it, but stuff is just kind of happening. There isn't really any rhyme or reason to why we're now into like a melodic thing here with the hats. Very loud lead here. It feels like not everything is in key. It also feels like that sample isn't in the same BPM as the rest of the track. Yeah, this is definitely not in C, and that other pad that was, or that other bass thing, step thing that was playing before, was in C. So not everything is in key, I think. The synth is going. Is that how you made it? I want to get like to an overarching conclusion here, but it's very clear that you're a beginner. You probably just started out, maybe I would say like a couple of months. To be honest, there's not much that I can say that will take your music from this level that you're at now to a professional level, other than it's going to take a few years to get your eyes or your ears in tune to get how would you say it? To be able to hear the differences, I guess. There are cool ideas in here. There's cool things that you're doing, but there's a lot of fundamental things that just don't work with this track. I cannot really even give examples because it's almost all of it that I would say is it's not so much like wrong from an artistic point. I don't want to be like too harsh or anything like that and say like it's all just a mess. But from a technical standpoint, it is. And give it a couple of years and you'll hear that as well. The main thing that you should probably do is every day, half an hour, listen to a bunch of reference material, a bunch of music that you actually like, a bunch of music that you actually want to make, and try to see what the differences are between these tracks that you're making now and the tracks that you're listening to. I think the second track is way better than this one. This one was a try after years of not touching anything. Yeah, the first track is a mess. We'll have a listen to the second one later, and we'll see. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of DMs here. But yeah, this one is very much a mess. Like there's things that are happening in the low end where the low end isn't. I can talk to you about technical ways that the kick and bass isn't working together until the end of time, but that's not really going to help you because I feel like you're in the stage of production where you just don't have an ear for that kind of thing. It takes years for somebody to get to a level where something like a kick and bass from modern psytrance is mixed in a way that is actually, standing up to what the rest of the people are doing. This is, I guess, the big thing when it comes to this kind of stuff. You are, at the end of the day, competing with every other artist. If you're doing this if you want your music to be heard by other people and enjoyed by other people, you're essentially part of a competition with all other artists out there. And if every other artist is at some level with the tonality and the way that they're mixing and the way that everything works from a technical standpoint, then maybe the artistic part may be as cool as you have it, right? In terms of like all of the sound design is cool, all of the things that you're doing from a creative point are kind of there. But if it just doesn't fit properly together, if it's not mixed well, if it's not arranged well, if it doesn't really make sense for people listening to other music and then listening to your music, you're going to have a hard time convincing other people to like really enjoy your music. I think the kick and bass in the second one is a lot more baked, sort of speak. I don't know what that means, but we'll hear it when we get there. Okay, sorry. I'm getting some DMs here that I need to respond to after the stream. Anyway, next up, we have Synthetics over here. Synthetics Music 92564992. Has he again submitted a track that I cannot... Oh, he's just submitted his profile. I mean, I guess he wants me to listen to this track over here, but for next time, people just submit the track that you want me to listen to and not your profile. This is a little bit of a strange way of doing it. I guess this is going to be his first track, because this is, for the rest, a completely empty profile. It's not yet 100%, Maybe there's like a description. Is there a way for me to check if this is the one that he wants me to listen to? No, there's no description, there's nothing there. But I'm assuming, since this is the only track on the profile, that he wants me to listen to Not Yet 100% by Synthetics. Nice advice, bro. Hey. Thank you. Gandom, welcome to the stream. I haven't said hello to anyone. Synthetics, Bo, Virtual Instinct, Novice. I know your name is in a different language, but I cannot pronounce that. NXI, Nick, Nin X Z, Nin X Z, I guess. Welcome as well. I did say hello to Mine B. And I think for now that's everyone. Very empty here. Nice kick and bass. I like that you cleaned it. That's always a good thing. It's maybe a little bit too short. You can make it a little bit longer, like you're cutting it off here, but it can be cut off maybe here. You can get maybe a little bit more. You can get maybe one more oscillation out of it. Right this upwards and then down and then stopping the bass. Fairly loud riser there. I don't know if you're going to put other elements on top of it. The track feels a little bit empty now. As you said, it's not yet 100%, but... A little bit still here, would like to hear a little bit more progression on the main synth that is playing there. Maybe have like a phaser on it or something like that, so that there's a bit more movement. I like the groove that you've set up here. There's just two bass sounds here that have a very metallic feeling. This thing over here, which I'm not sure I'm a fan of. Also, when it comes to the kick and bass here, I really hate the lack of stereo excitement on the bass line. Especially for something as progressive as this. Here there should be stereo play with the bass line. The higher frequencies of the bass line should be bouncing all over the place in terms of the width. And it's not doing that, it's staying in the center of my face, which is not a thing that I really like. For this bass line, I kind of get it, but even here I would say a little bit of stereo with processing would be nice. The plugin that I always recommend for that, for everybody, is M Stereo Spread. This is a very good plugin on bass to get wider bass. I like the ARP, I like how it progresses, but there's a few things missing here. It feels a little bit too empty still, this part of the track as well. The part before it with the vocals was really stale, and then the ARP is progressing up, but there's nothing really on top of it. Not a fan of the very obvious sidechain pumping that is happening here. I almost never sidechain my synths. I've learned that it's, I guess, basically not necessary. Finally, when it comes to fills, when you have a kick and bass and you're ending the kick and bass segment to go into a fill, one of the things that I always recommend is to have a final kick that kind of closes the phrasing. So that is something that you could try to implement, because you end on the bass note, and I would play one more kick and then have your fill and then go into whatever else that you have there. Overall, it sounds very nice. This is definitely there. I feel like it's a little bit short, the drops in, if you compare it with the rest of the track. You can see it here as well. Like, there's a lot of breakdown in this track. There's a lot of intro, there's a lot of parts where even here it is building up over a while, right? You can see the volume going down there. We get the high pass and the build up and all of that good stuff that we often like. And together, I guess, with the fact that this track feels very empty, the track really never reaches an energy level that is like high energy. It feels like you took a psytrance track, you deleted half of the synths and one-shots and vocals, and then you rendered it out. It feels too empty in terms of the elements that this track needs to have. I don't know if this is your first track, but if it is, seeing as this profile is so new, if this is your first track, it does sound very nice. I do like it. But it's a beginning. I would like to see where you go with this when the track is actually full of stuff, when you finish the production. Because the first half of the production is the easiest half. Well, Deck, how are you doing? Mnemonic. I'm really sorry. Sounds like some great astral projection or infected mushroom from the early 2000s samples of flying into a star. Does it? It sounds like pretty modern psytrance to me. The way that I associate it is the old psytrance sounds less flat, more dynamic, I guess. And I had a discussion with somebody recently in a comment section on one of my videos that they said they didn't like the fact that my bass lacked dynamics. And I said, like, that's just the modern sound. So I would say that the old sound sounds a lot more dynamic, and I don't really hear that in this kick and bass. In fact, even in the waveform was pretty flat throughout the whole thing. Which I guess is more the modern style. Anyway, Laroy here. The best of good times. My first post here, would love some feedback on this overly happy tune. Let's see. You often get a lot of dark side, so it's nice to get some bright side as well, I guess. The happiest track I ever made, influenced by Huey Lewis. Arcade style, could fit into a video game, Mario Kart maybe. At least that is what is said in the description on SoundCloud. Thank you for the feedback, Projector. You're welcome. I like where this is going. I'm not sure I would have put a sub bass in this part. Especially with this mess down here. Not really a fan of the kick and bass. Bit of a strange tonality to the kick drum. It also sounds like the kick and bass is still building up, like it still needs to hit that crescendo, come out a little bit, and then have the full volume of the kick and bass come in, because now it's too quiet. You have elements overpowering it. We saw it just in the waveform. You can see the waveform bulging up whenever some elements play. And that's not what you want. You want your kick and bass to basically be stable and slightly move, but you never want to see the kick and bass playing at this level and then it just going boom, which you can see over here. It just becomes bigger. Do you see that? It becomes massive for a second when that other element plays, so that other element is actually louder than the kick and bass. Which is strange because the kick and bass is the thing that we dance to, so that should be the loudest part. You have some low frequency material over here that is messing with the stability of the kick and bass. This part is a bit too busy. I don't know what I should be listening to here. Mary, how are you doing? Welcome, welcome. There's definitely some cool sound design. I like the last two parts. Personally, I would probably remove the bass line from here. I'm not a fan of bass just playing on its own. It sounds really weird, especially with the sidechaining. Like, am I supposed to dance to this or not? There's some very loud effects in here, which is strange. It's almost like you took the mix and took all of the priorities of the mix and flipped them upside down. Like the kick and bass is one of the more quieter elements, and then all of the effects are super loud and stuff like that. Like an effect is a transition method, right? It's a way that you can let the listener know what is happening to the actual musical idea of the track, right? If it rises or it downlifts, that kind of stuff. That is what an effect is, in my opinion. And here I can hear a lot of like effects coming through and that kind of thing. But the main kick and bass doesn't come through. The top drums don't come through here. I can hear a clap. I can hear a very dull, very background hat somewhere. But it's basically mainly focused on, I guess, the loops that are on top here. And that means that the whole track just feels off balance. It's more of background music. You're not supposed to dance to this, I think. I mean, it's psytrance, right? Like there's a psytrance kick and bass in there. The psytrance structure, psytrance sound design. But even if you're not supposed to dance to it, my point still stands that the most important element of the track should probably be the loudest and not buried in the mix. And even if you were to disagree with maybe, okay, the kick isn't the most important one, and I want to focus on the more synthy stuff, then the effects shouldn't overpower the synths. I like the musical idea. It just needs a lot of... Oh. I like the musical idea. It sounds nice. There's a few parts where it was too busy. As I said, it's hard for me to to guess what you want me to listen to. At the end of the day, the mix should naturally guide you to one or two elements that are the main core idea of the track, that are the musical idea of the track. And for psytrance, that is usually the main synth, right? The kick and bass is playing always, and then the main synths are changing on top of that. So that should probably be mixed fairly loudly, and then you have supporting synths that sit below it. What I feel you did is you took all of the synths and the melodic stuff and the sequences and like the guitar and whatever else you were playing, and you put them at the same priority, at the same level, at the same energy, I guess. Whereas if you had the guitar here and some of the other synths down here, then you get to focus on that guitar, which is currently not happening. It's really hard to have all of the elements at the same level and then have the listener just kind of try to pick one. What you want to do is you want to guide them to one specific element. Right, there's a few exceptions to that. We have the kick and bass that usually cover the low frequencies that are very loud, but aren't really mixed in a way that you're focused on them in psytrance, as weird as it sounds. When you're listening to it, you're more feeling that, so that is in a different like frequency region. You can almost think of it, so that is kind of like apart. Then you have the higher frequencies where usually you have hats, your clap, and your open hat. In this case, there wasn't an open hat, and the clap came through very little, and the hats came through even less. I could barely hear that there were hats in there. But usually you have like two pockets on either side of the frequency spectrum. You have your lower frequencies over here and your higher frequencies over here. And then all of the stuff that is kind of happening over here, right, except the kick and bass, as I said, and maybe the lower parts of the stuff that is happening up top. But all of the melodies, the sequences, the vocals, the effects, and all of that kind of stuff, you have to prioritize, okay, which is important, which is supportive, and which is supportive to the supportive stuff, I guess. So you have your main synth up top, you have your supporting synths down below there, and then you have your effects, risers, downlifters, that kind of stuff. And stuff like a vocal, for example, I would say that is a main thing, right? Stuff like one-shots, they are a main thing too. If you have a main synth playing, what you usually want to have is, say that you have a one-shot right here in the middle, you want to have a little dip in the attention that you give to the main synth, so that people can quickly listen to the one-shot and then it delays out and then the main synth kind of takes over again when you layer main synths with one-shots. And that just happens by, I guess, having the one-shot so loud that it just slightly overtakes the main synth and then immediately dives back under it again. Mix-wise, in my opinion, that is at least that is what I look for when it comes to mixing, I guess, the mid-range elements. I have no good words that... I have no good way of explaining what I mean by sequences, vocals, effects, like all of the mid-range stuff. There's not a single phrase or a single word that I can quickly say that describes the thing that I'm trying to describe here. Even saying something like everything that isn't kick, bass, and drums. Because say like a crash, right? A crash is more of like an impact sound. More of like an effect sound. I would put that in the stuff that you would need to mix in the priority system. There's no soundbite for that I can just quickly say and that I can immediately get my idea across, I guess. That is sometimes annoying if you're trying to tell people something, if you're trying to teach people something. But anyway, let's move on to the next track here. We have Ulf, who just joined here. Sorry. This version is pre-mastering, just added limiter to get the gain at the moment. Feedback appreciated since it's easy to get blind deaf while working on the details. I think this says a lot. I guess this part says a lot. To me, mastering is just this. Mastering is just loudness. I may do a slight bit of EQing, maybe 1 dB, 1.5 dB if I have to. But even then, that means that I've failed in the mix. I don't know what this track is going to sound like, but I always assume that people that say this, right? I just added a limiter, so don't worry about the master. It's not exactly sounding the way I want it to sound. They expect miracles to happen in the master. It's not going to happen. If your mix isn't good, then your master isn't good. That's just end of story. You cannot fix the mix in the master. You cannot fix any issues that your track has in the master. If you're relying on your master to do significant tonal changes, if you're relying on your master to do significant changes in balance, if you're relying on your master for that magical sound to come out, you're way too late in the process. Not saying that you're doing that. Not saying that is what's happening. As I said, I haven't heard the track yet, but that is usually what I hear. People, they expect a lot more from mastering. Mastering, at the end of the day, you can think of mastering as just making stuff louder. And if you have to do a little bit of correction, yeah, then that's okay. If you need, okay, the high frequencies need to be a half dB louder, right? So that it matches with the reference track that I have or something like that, then that is okay. But if stuff is off balance, then you're not going to fix that in the master. That being said, no personal attack. I have no idea if that is what you meant here or not. If you knew this or not. I just wanted to use this opportunity to say something important. 6planets.mp3 by Olf.
The new 6 planets orbit a star 100 light years away. The planetary system has been untouched for several billion years.
When I have a vocal like this, and I have a pad like this,
recent observations
I leave some space in the pad. I would have a low pass filter maybe over here, so that this stuff over here is just vocal. So that the vocal has its own high frequency space in which we can hear the S's, hear the T's, hear the P's, all of the important things that we hear, that we listen to when we listen to a vocal, happens up here. So I want to leave some space for that vocal there. I like the kick. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of the bass sound. It sounds, again, fairly plasticky for some reason, just like the track we had a few moments ago. I don't even know if I can properly describe what I'm hearing in the bass line, but it just sounds off. This part of the track is fairly empty if you compare it with the part that we heard before, where we had this like whole ARP and stuff happening. Usually when it comes to sidetracks, we tend to build stuff up over time. So what you did is you went in the intro, you went high, and then now you go a little bit lower. You can just add more things to this, right? Bum, padam, padam, pam, 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 padam. Some more groove, some more stuff happening. Just think of a rhythm. Okay, this is a mess. You can see over here, something is bleeding. You can see the difference between this kick and this kick over here. This kick is destroyed. This kick is not going to get people to dance, because this is just a wobbly mess. Even here, your bassline is bleeding into this kick and pushing this transient up. So if you're pushing this into a limiter, this transient has a lot less space than if that wasn't the case. Same is going to be true for this transient over here. For some reason, this transient seems to be doing fine. But then over here, you have it bleeding into this transient. And at this point, it's not really a problem. At this level, I guess. At this volume. At the amount of bleeding that you're going into it, I guess is the right way to say it. But if you're not careful, and if you don't resample and you never teach yourself to resample, then at some point you're going to get into a situation where your kick and bass is just completely destroyed and you won't know why, because of this bleeding property.
planet's orbit.
Read the, by the way, before posting, read the rules over here. Make sure that you comply with those. Sorry.
Recent observations have shown that their orbital periods are in perfect harmony with each other.
Is there a reason why this track is so panned to the right often? Like, I know stereo width has a little bit of influence on where this meter hits, because obviously differences in left and right channel. But even here with the kick and bass, it seems fairly off axis. It seems to dance around like this point over here as opposed to the actual center. Piano synth might be too loud here. Maybe, yeah. A little bit. Although I wouldn't call this a piano, I would call this a plug. To be honest, my main complaint about this track is that not a lot happens. We've heard this synth earlier, we heard that that plug synth earlier, and in between I don't really remember anything else happening, to be honest, because it feels like everything was just kind of like a continuation of that. Even here, this like glide thing doesn't feel that different from the pam pam plug that you, or that like impact synth, I guess is the best way to describe it, that you had before. Hello Greedo. Part with the offbeat bass kind of grooves. Yeah. As I said, I'm not a fan of the tonality. I think maybe what could be the case is that you have too much mid-range. Maybe try turning down 500 Hertz to get that nice Hightech EQ style scoop that we like in our bass lines. I also like it on the kick, to be honest. Plucky piano. I don't think that was a piano. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that it's a synth, not a piano. I'm pretty sure that would be that would be right. But indeed, a bit more variation would be nice. I agree. Yes. Next up, we have Nin X Z with FM Sauce 150 F sharp. I was like, it's very Psytrance-esque to always have the BPM and the key in the name of the track, or at least often to include BPM and key. There's very few genres that revolve so tightly around what BPM it is and what key it is, and also that I see like, okay, what BPM is it, and then at what time at the night do you play it, that kind of stuff. But yeah, just found that an interesting observation. Let's have a listen. Work in progress, no baseline export yet. Thanks for your feedback. You're welcome. Let's have a listen. I like it. Take the kick and bass in the intro and lower it by 5 dB. course export the kick and bass. I can see that you were at a photo link, so I'm assuming that that's the route that you wanted to go for. Don't do that. There's a lot of bleeding, as you can see here. That's probably not a good idea. There's some cool sound design going on in here. I like it. Cool little fill there. Could be cool to remind the listener in this part of the track of that rhythm. Not so much with the same element, but you had like going up and down octaves. What you can do is every maybe 4 bars have a synth or have something else play the same idea. Not going up and down with octaves, but long note, shorter note, longer note, shorter note. To kind of mimic the same idea. Or at least the same rhythm. Try to get that same rhythm back into the mind of the listener. Fun fill, yeah. You can definitely hear that this is a little bit more advanced here. I don't have to talk about priorities and mixing. You have all of that right. I don't really have to tell you about the sound design and that kind of stuff. That is all on point as well. Here we'll definitely be listening more for the details. I feel like the FM synth that is in here is from my tone spec. It sounds very tone spec FM-y. This one over here sounds very much like I guess the first one. Of course, it doesn't have to be. There's many different ways that you can get an FM sound like that. Carapana, welcome. Here as well, if this is more intended as a break, what I would do is lower it by 5 dB on the kick and bass. So now the kick and bass comes back and it actually has some more impact. Here, every once in a while, there's still the FM synth that was playing before. Since this is like a whole different section and you're messing up all of the other sound design, I would remove that FM synth so that you're really in a new section with completely new ideas. And then here you can come back into the FM synth with having like that little pause in FM. Just to give the listener something completely new. Perhaps. Very good sound design. It's just the kind of stuff I really like. It's a little bit more psychedelic than the sounds that I go for usually. This is more, I guess you would call this like nighttime, right? To be honest, I'm not 100% versed in the, as I said before, the what type of psytrance you play at what hour and stuff like that. There's people that have like whole plans of, okay, this is 11 o'clock, this is 2 o'clock, this is 5 o'clock in the morning, this is the stuff that you play only in the Sunday, this is the stuff that you play on the Saturday when it comes to festivals and that kind of stuff. I guess I can guess a little bit, but I'm not... I haven't listened to psytrance actually for like a long time. I've only been listening to psytrance for like 5 years. And I've gone to one festival up until this point. So my experience with this categorizing and that kind of stuff isn't too high, if that makes sense. Overall, very nice track. I really like it. As I said, it's a little bit more psychedelic than the stuff that I'm usually into. But there's definitely a quality production here. Just a few details, a few considerations that you can make to make it maybe a bit better. But now we go to the next track by Novice here. Hightech 180 BPM. I think you need to go to more festivals, brother. I do, yes. I 100% do. And good news, I'm going to 2 festivals this year. So I'm upping my total amount of festivals that I have been to in my life by 200%. Very loud riser leading into nothing. Kick and bass is a bit of a mess. As you can see, there's a lot of bleeding into transients. To be honest, the bassline doesn't really even have a transient. If you look here, you cannot see a strong click here.
But my eyes
Bit of a wonky vocal there. Definitely has text-to-speech elements all over it. Either that, or you should probably remove or alter the delay. Give it some stereo width on that vocal to make it wider, make it bigger. There's a preset, I know. That's funny, hearing your own presets. This is again, I'm going to say the same thing as I said for your last track. This is again the kind of track that really shows that you're just starting out producing stuff. In this case, you have a sound that has a lot of lower frequencies in there, playing on top of your kick and bass. So you probably want to remove those lower frequencies so that they don't clash. Right now it's a complete mess in the lower frequencies. This is not something that has a lot of punch. This is not something that you can really dance to, because it's muddying up, it's clashing with each other. Wrong key? That may be the case, yeah. To be honest, I'm not good enough in listening that I can actually hear that. Yeah, at the end of the day, this is the kind of track that you're going to listen back to in a year's time and you're going to say, what the hell was I doing? Strange hardstyle lead in the middle of nowhere. The one thing is like the mix, which is okay, that is something that you get an ear to, but the thing that you can improve immediately is thinking a bit more about the arrangement. Right, you can just pull up an arrangement of a track that you like and copy it, say, okay, here they have this kind of element, here they have that kind of element, here they have this kind of element, and you can just try to listen for all of the elements that are in a particular part of the track and try to lay out your track in the same way. That way you can at least learn how to properly structure a track, because now things are just kind of happening. This is annoyingly loud. Yeah, this is the kind of track that yeah, you're going to look back on in a year's time, maybe even half a year's time, and you're going to say, okay, what I was doing here just doesn't really make sense, and that is absolutely okay. I hope that you enjoyed the process of learning, because trust me, it's an endless process, so you need to enjoy the process of learning, because it's always going to happen. And secondly, the first few years of making music, where you're discovering everything, where you're one day just sitting down and you're saying, oh wait, that's how it works, oh I never knew that, those are the best, at least in my opinion. It doesn't really happen for me anymore. I can always, maybe not directly, if I learn a new technique or I learn a new sound design concept, I can always kind of, once I learn something new, once I learn, okay, this is how you make that sound, this is how you do this thing, I can always tangentially link it back to something that I've already done, right? Whereas if you're completely new to things and you're discovering, I don't know, what the filter cutoff of a filter does, the first time that you actually understand when you're not just hearing it like, you know, tweaking a knob up and down, but if you maybe look at the spectrum, or you I guess lay the relationship between frequency and the tonality and the energy of a sound, once you get all of those ideas in your head, then you start to discover things, right? Then you suddenly have this eureka moment of, oh wait, that's what it's doing, that is what this knob is for, that is what is happening here. It become that's like, I guess, the actual fun part of learning the music production. And in my at least for me, I, after 12 years of producing, never really have those moments anymore. Yeah, I'm just a novice, I'm learning a lot. Enjoy that moment. Enjoy that phase of music production. But keep in mind that there's still a lot to learn. A lot to improve. And that's going to be the case for a while. So be prepared for this stage of your music production career to last very long. It can... but this one is better than the first one for sure, right? To be honest, it's probably better if you just look at the two tracks in isolation. But what I compare it to is the stuff that maybe came before it in the stream, which is not really fair, right? Because this was a very good track. But also my own music and my own capabilities. So I am always comparing your guys' music to my own music, because I am at my level of production. So for me, it's like this and then this. I don't even know if you guys can see it on the camera, but I'm putting my finger a little bit on top of the other finger. So it's like a very, very small step in which it may be better. If you played the tracks the other way around, I could probably also find arguments for why the other track is better than this track over here. Right? If you say it to me like that. So for me, it doesn't really feel that way, but maybe to you, you like the tonality of the kick and bass a lot more, and then, I guess, for you have learned something. For you have said, okay, here is the step up that I've made, but because I'm comparing it to what I know about sidewinds, for me, it's not really better. It's at this. I would say it's at the same level for me. Try to compare your kick and bass with the kick and bass or Hightech artist track that you like. I had a lot of trouble even in sound and shape. It had a lot of trouble even in sound and shape. Yeah, I do agree. One of the things that you can do to accelerate your learning process, as I've said many times on this channel, every morning, I guess not every morning, but for the people that don't have anything else going on in their life just like me, what you can try is to just have a playlist. I can show you guys mine if Spotify will open instantly, which it doesn't. But I think you can even find it here somewhere. Landing page here. Have I not posted? I guess you can find it on my page. If I just go to projector here, so this is all of my music. And then somewhere in here, yeah, psychedelic favorites. This is my references playlist and all of the music that I like. And you guys can probably just add it or like it somewhere. I cannot find it because I am the creator here, of course. But there should be like a heart button or a follow button or whatever. And this is all of the music that I listen to on a daily basis whenever I get into the studio. Either to music like this or to the live set by Asterix of Boom 2023. Every day, spending half an hour to maybe an hour even listening to music before you even get started with your own music just helps you tune your ears. Learning by ear when you're a novice is hard. Yeah, at the end of the day, you have to train your ears. And one of the ways that you do that is, as I said, by listening to music. Another way that you can do that is just by looking at music. Right? You can hear, okay, what's the difference between a kick and bass line that I clean and a kick and bass line that I don't clean in terms of punch. At some point, you're going to hear when that punch is lacking or when that punch is really coming through. I'm gonna be honest, with that kind of a detail thing, it's always good to have an analyzer. Even I cannot hear, at least on my current system, if there's bleeding into transients or not. Especially if it's small. Like if it's big, if there's issues like you had in your track, I can probably hear that kick and bass isn't cleaned as opposed to a clean kick and bass. If you were to take that last kick and bass that you played and you put it side by side with a clean version of the exact kick and bass, I could probably identify them. But there may be cases in which the bleeding is so small that you cannot really hear them. But other examples is, check a spectrum. How does a mix of my favorite tracks looks on a spectrum analyzer versus mine? How does it look in the waveform over a long period of time versus mine? Like the breaks. Are the breaks louder or quieter than the drops? Probably quieter. How is the stereo field? Is the track very mono? Is the track a little bit stereo? Is the track very stereo? What are the frequencies looking like? How clean is the lower frequencies over here? Your lower frequencies were very muddy, and that is just something that happens if you're a beginner. If you don't really have the ear for that, if you don't really know that yet, you can use other tools to a certain extent to see whether the low frequencies are muddy or not, right? You're just going to have to find a muddy track and a non-muddy track, and you have to compare them. Here. Challenge submissions. Oh. I guess somebody put it in there and then deleted it. It keeps the thing for me if somebody deletes their track. Next up, we have Alien Instincts with one too many L's. Alien is spelled with one L. I don't know if that's deliberate or not. 153 BPM master by Virtual Instinct. Let's hope that this time he has written a track that isn't too busy. I think the last few tracks that he has submitted, I've always said, like, tone it down, slow it down. Don't get too busy with your music. At least the very start of his tracks tend to be, like the first drop, tend to be fairly busy. In all of the sequences and stuff like that already playing immediately. feels a little bit calmer, but there's still a lot still happening. Not really a fan of the hat. The hat feels very, very sharp here. I'm into house music, but here I'm learning a lot from you guys. Thank you. Very, very dark snare. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that. Oh, you're just filtering it in. Well, still, it still has like a very strong energy. At what is this? Like 2000 hertz. This area over here is occupied by the snare. You can pause it and you can see like most of the snare energy is over here, whereas it should probably be in the noise area where that sizzle of the snare. That is really what we're aiming for in Sidetrend. I'm never a fan of snares just speeding up like that. Especially here, it felt like it kind of came out of nowhere. Like the rest of the track wasn't building up yet and suddenly the snare started playing every beat and I'm like, wait, what's happening? Generally speaking, if you're trying to write music that is putting people into a trance-like state, you don't necessarily want things that catch you off guard all the time. Like you never want people to open their eyes and say for a second like, hey, what's going on? Am I out of the beat? Am I out of where I should be? And stuff like that where the snare suddenly starts playing also on the other beats. If we're so used to the snare playing on the 2 and the 4, that sounds really off. In that case, what you can probably do better is to actually take some snares and make new snares, take a different snare sound and then slowly have that rise in, as opposed to just using the main snare as your build snare. I think this sound that plays there is a little bit too loud. The rest of the mix though is fairly good. As I said, some elements are like a little bit too bright, some elements are a little bit too loud, that kind of stuff. But the overall balance is pretty much there, I would say. Just didn't catch that, but there was one element that was not in sync with the rest of the track rhythm-wise. That's again one of those things that catches you off guard, like, hey, wait, the synth isn't playing with the rest of the track. Sudden low pass for a bar. Greetings from Brazil, nice content. Greetings back to Brazil. I hope Brazil is doing well. I guess without any of the drums playing, this is supposed to be the low energy part of the track. It feels like, I guess at this point it's not really true anymore. But in, for example, the first drop, the amount of elements that you have in the first drop and the amount of elements that you have in the third drop are almost identical. So you start your track, you build it up in the intro in terms of energy level, and then it just stays flat for the whole track, and then it goes down again towards the outro. I don't know why you keep doing this. I think I've said it many times, but you need to flow with the energy, because otherwise the track becomes still. If you always have the same level of energy, it doesn't matter how high that energy is. It's flat. It doesn't change. There's no relative like high and low points. So therefore, there's no real hype. The squeaky lead he plays in this section is really cool, but it was so out of sync. Grid sync. Please re-record, arrange them. Yeah, there were a few. There was one synth that I really caught that was out of sync towards the end somewhere here. I'm not going to play through the whole thing and try to find it again. But there was one synth that I paused it. So if you go back in the stream and rewatched it, I tried to pause it and it just went off the screen. In a fill somewhere, it happened, but it was out of sync. But the main problem with this track and some of the other productions that you have submitted over the like last year-ish, even more, that I've been doing the feedback stream, is this flatness of the track. You do a lot of cool sound design, you do a lot of cool stuff, and in this case, I wouldn't even say that there's like necessarily too many elements playing on top of each other, in that you're separating your elements time-wise. But you're always playing them in, I guess, the same amount of time. One of the things that you can try is to tell yourself for the first drop, right? Let's say that you have a kick and bass that is 16 bars long. So you would have 15 bars of kick and bass in your final fill, of course. Red and orange here. Let's say that for the first drop, what you're going to do is you're going to do something like this, where you just make like a MIDI clip or something like that, and you're going to alternate with elements. So you want to have one maybe impact sound from here, you want to have one sweep going into here, maybe another impact coming from here, you want to have another sweep going into here, or maybe like a cool melody that plays right before here and that finishes on this point. These are your points of interest, right? So this is a point of interest at the beginning over here. This is a point of interest, this is a point of interest here, this is a point of interest, and this is a final point of interest. You can have automations going into that, you can have sweeps going into that, you can have impacts coming out of that, you can have melodies that finish there, you can like play the final root note of the melody on here so that you resolve whatever melody that you play. You can have modulations that maybe, I don't know, speed up an LFO that is modulating the filter cutoff that goes up and up and up and up, and then the sound stops here. All of those ideas can happen, and you can kind of arrange stuff around these 5 points of interest. Then what you do is you make your next section, and to increase the energy level, you go like this. You just divide up the thing that you have over here in a half again. And now you get more points. And then at the very high energy part, you can maybe decide to do, oh, I'm going to go every half a bar. I'm going to go really crazy with all of the synths the way that you're doing now. And something like that maybe looks like this, right? Like that, or maybe even more crazy. Maybe there's something happening over here. There's another small thing happening there. There's something happening here, like this, right? And this just duplicates over and over and over. So the density of changes and the density of like how often the sound is played and how often the modulation finishes and how often there's an automation point and how often there's impacts and crashes and all of those things, they can revolve around this idea of these points of interest that are essentially just divisions of the whole thing over here. Even these, if you think about it, are divisions of 16, because this is just 4 times 4, right? 4 times 4 bars, which you then perfectly match up with the 16 bars that you have over here, your 15 bars of kick and bass and then your final fill here. Aquax, how are you doing? Welcome. Sleepwalker, welcome as well. I didn't say hi to you either. But hopefully you can that the rest of your productions and the rest of the like stuff like the mix and the kick and bass tonality and the sound design and the overall ideas of the track, all of that is good. It's just that when you start your track and you go from low energy to the highest point of energy in the intro, and then you stay at the same level, and that's not really interesting to listen to. That's the main thing. Even that detail thing about the sound being off sync wouldn't really matter, or doesn't really matter as much as your problem that you have with energy flow. Just the I guess complete lack of change in energy in the part of the track. One thing that you have to remember, the reason why we do that is because as a DJ, at the end of the day, that first drop and the last drop of your track that's being used to mix, right? So there's two tracks playing on top of each other. You're going to have two tracks playing here. This is the final drop of the last track that is playing, and then your track is going to have to be inserted here, and then that can be mixed into. If your track is already fully at a high energy, at the full highest extent, there's not really much space to mix into, right? It's going to just completely take over the other track, and it's going to sound like a lot of crazy things are happening while the other track is just a little bit lower. It's trying to calm down, so that those two tracks in combination can sound like, I guess, one track. That's the idea of the first drop and the last drop. I guess the first drop and the outro of Psytrance, at least in my opinion. That being said, I have very little experience with DJing, as you guys know. But from the little experience that I can tell, at least for my style of DJing, that is how it seems to be going. It's been 1.5 hours, which means that it's probably time for a little break. We do have some more submissions, of course. We have another one by NXI here. Mosquito. Mary here. Hirumi. So there's a few submissions. I see another person submitting as well. You guys can keep coming with the submissions. The stream is far from over. I'm just going to take maybe like 5 to 10 minutes of a break. And while I'm doing that, I'll put on the Eclipse Sound Syndicate mix. The reason why I want to do that today is because I want to show you guys something on the page of Eclipse Sound Syndicate, which is really great. And that is hello? Here. There we are. Did it disconnect? Is that the reason why it started lagging so much? I wasn't looking at the actual OBS thing for my connection. Anyway, Eclipse Sound Syndicate hit 1,000 subscribers. Which is what I wanted to say. Thank you. Thank you guys for all subscribing and all supporting this project. It's pretty crazy that we're already here. In half a year after like launching, to already be at 1,000 subscribers. As you can see, the mixes do really well. 26k, 10k over here, so that is really a driver. But even just our normal music, our oldest music here, this is 12k for a single. This is 5.1k. This is some really cool, good views in here on basically a fresh channel. I guess it's because it's all music, so it's repeatable, and the algorithm kind of knows that. But still, this is amazing that this is happening so quickly. And this means that this that we're theoretically within the guidelines of monetization, which is a huge step for us, because that means that the mixes and the songs get to give us a little bit of income, which we can then use to run a few advertisements, that kind of stuff, which can only benefit the channel. Anyway, I'm just going to put on part of the mix here. Let me see. I guess this track over here will be nice. And then once I'm back, we'll continue listening to your guys' music as well.
every kind of pleasure you could see. Then you would get more and more adventurous, and you would make further and further out gambles as to what you would dream. So in this idea then, everybody is fundamentally the ultimate reality.
My timing, as always, immaculate. Just getting one track done. Worth of break. And I will get back into your guys' music as well. Meanwhile, click that like button, fellas. Of course, always click the like button. That always helps. Do you think Science of Life utility production template is great to use when making sidetrends? I have no idea. I've never used it. Also, welcome to the stream, by the way, Glyph. I hope that you enjoy your time here. Anyway, NXI here with booting sequence. Let's have a listen. My latest thingy. I like that. Thingy is a fun word. I've heard that said a lot. Mark, Mr. Speaker from Biopsy, he always says it. I associate that with him. It's like his word. Hey Projector, I noticed your tracks during the break are very quiet. I have to turn the volume. I I have to turn up the volume a lot when you come back and break my eardrums. I'm sorry. Maybe I have my YouTube volume low this time. That can be the case. It looks like the waveform is very clipped. I don't know if that's an aesthetic, if this is the maximum that the waveform goes to, or if that's just particular interactions with the bass and stuff and whatnot. It looks like you're clipping the waveform here, which, if this is a master, I wouldn't do that probably. I thought this was an intro for something. But it sounds like this is the idea of the track. Or not. I guess this is the idea of the track then. Honestly, it sounded like it was still the intro for like a sidetrance track or something like that. I would probably make the breakbeat louder if you're going for like a breakcore aesthetic. Make it a bit more dynamic. It doesn't really have to clip like the way you do. It doesn't have to be this sub-heavy either. Breakcore tends to be music that you don't really dance to. Big observation there, I know. So in my opinion, what I would do is probably turn the bass down. Also maybe have more portions where the bass doesn't play, because now the sub plays the whole time. It could be nice to maybe have a bit more of a dynamic track. Yeah, your volume is really high now. Is it the mic volume versus the desktop? Because my desktop is now 5 dB lower than my mic. And I have continuously had struggles with desktop audio. Let me quickly check if my volume is low. I don't want to get a strike, so I would need to, I guess, go back to Eclipse somewhere. Normally it always shows up on my homepage. Here we are. Oh yeah. I know why the volume was low. I had it lowered here. Sorry for that. It's always good to remember volume settings from older streams when making live streams. My volume settings never change. I never alter them, unless I'm trying to fix something. And I recently fixed something in regards to the microphone when I switched to full cam. Normally when I switched back and forth like this, my volume of the microphone would change. And I believe nowadays it doesn't anymore. And I think I fixed that. But overall the balance should never change. One of the issues that I have with these feedback streams is that you guys send me tracks at all different kinds of volumes. And also when I'm producing versus when I'm listening to a master track, those volumes levels are also different. So I am constantly juggling around different volumes. But I do that in my virtual mixer, right? This thing over here, as opposed to my streaming software, OBS, which is this over here. These volumes, I tried to set them once and they should never change. Like the only reason why I change those volumes if I'm trying to fix some imbalance that is there in the stream. But that like rarely happens, right? So sometimes I find something, sometimes I'll listen back to the stream and I'm like, oh, I could give the volume of desktop maybe a little bit more or a little bit less. Or I could change the compressor settings a little bit on the microphone or the desktop audio, the side chaining that I do. But my actual volume setting, they shouldn't change too much between streams. So I just need to find a setting that is good for all circumstances. And then whenever a track is like really quiet, I should balance it in my virtual mixer. which I sometimes do during these feedback streams. Sometimes we have a track that is so quiet that it needs to be boosted. Maybe even this track had to be boosted a little bit because it was clipping at maybe minus 6, 7-ish, that area. I'm getting really sweaty. I'm turning on the AC. Hopefully the microphone doesn't pick that up. Overall, I like that idea. It was a little bit different than what I thought it was going to be. It sounded initially like an intro to me, but eventually I realized that that was the whole thing. I think there's things that you can fix on the mix side. I think I pointed them out. Just make the breakcore part of this breakcore track stand out a little bit more. Next up, we have Mosquito, also known as Carapana over here. Also known as Nyctophilia, I guess. I don't know which one you would like to be called here, but you have multiple names, so that makes it a little bit harder for me. Anyway, this is a preview of a track, so this may not be the whole track. Oh no, it is. It looks like a full track, at least in terms of time. 158 BPM, and NN stands probably for no name yet. Let's have a listen. Master Projector, hello. Thank you.
The world of the dream.
Nice little spot there for the vocal.
Into that dream.
I like the kick and bass. The bass could be a little bit longer. I would probably try to get another oscillation out of it down below here for the sub and then like fade it out over here as opposed to over here. But that's an aesthetic thing, that's not a technical thing. Like, it's okay the way that you have it, if that's the vibe that you want to go for, that very staccato vibe. But you don't have to do that. Right? You can have a bit more gluing by getting a oscillation more out of it. I'm not sure I'm a fan of the snare. It sounds like it has a strong fundamental, which I would remove. See if we can... Yeah, this stuff over here. This is probably the snare here and here. These like very small humps here. I don't even know if it's going to show up on the YouTube stream. But generally speaking, I just take the noise component of my snares. I've noticed that there's no real benefit into having those lower harmonics, and they get in way of the like kick and bass transients. Mainly the kick transient. When they're playing on the kick, that's where they can cause some real issues. On the bass, it doesn't really matter too much because the bass tends to be quieter. For this kind of dark side feeling. One of the things that I personally like to go for is a little bit more of a dip at 500 Hz than you hear in normal psytrance. And here I can see you actually have quite a lot of energy there. So I would probably EQ out like a little scoop here in this region. Focus around 500 Hz-ish, 500, 400 Hz. That from here it kind of goes down and then back up again. Also, this track could have a little bit more sub bass. And the final thing that you have to look out for is that you have some parts where you actually have some really strong lower frequencies. Normally I am very cautious with recommending people high passing their stuff. But if you actually have stuff happening over here in those very low frequencies, you know, your 10 Hz, the 5 Hz, up until like 25 Hz-ish, maybe even 30 Hz, you probably want to filter those out if those signals are very strong. And we saw a part in the break where that was happening. We also see sometimes with your fills and the way that you're stretching up kick and bass and stuff like that, that there's a lot of energy here. Like even this stuff over here is not a problem. This is just error from the analyzer that we see now, right on this kick and bass. So don't do it here. But if you're like stretching out the kick and bass or you're pitching it down or whatever you're doing for your effects and such, here you have a very mono sound. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that. Yeah, here. This is where you can see that there's a lot of energy on those lower frequencies. You probably want to filter those out. I think this track has a little bit the same problem as Virtual Instinct has, in that all of the time the energy level of the track is like right here, and that there's no real moment where the track slows down, right? It just plays at a high point. It went up in the intro and then it came to a point where a certain amount of elements were playing in a section or in like maybe say 4 bars, and that never really changes. It is always high and always energetic and always at the highest point, meaning that there is no high point in the track because it's all relative at the end of the day. You want to maybe ease the listener into the cooler sound design and the more complex parts of the track and the more energetic parts of the track, where you're doing more stuff, where you have quicker modulations, where you have quicker switches between sounds, by having a few parts where it's a little bit slower. It maybe takes a few atmospheres and there's like a one shot every 4 bars or something like that for 16 bars. And then you go into your fill and then you raise the energy level to an actually higher level. Right now what is happening is that you from your intro immediately are at that high level, and therefore there's no differences, and therefore the track doesn't have a high energy point because it's all at the same energy, right? Everything is relative in music. So if you want to have a high energetic, a high moment of your track, you need to have lower moments, because otherwise it's all just moments. I guess that's the best way that I can explain it. I don't know if there's a better way to explain that. Always relative. Exactly. Everything is relative. That's why stuff like frequency content is also relative. Right? Something is only, I guess, bright if there's other frequencies that sit below it. Or something is only sub-heavy in relation to other tracks, for example. Or something is only loud if something else next to it is quiet. You cannot have really a loud sound that is playing on its own, because then it's just a sound. If you have one sound in your track and that's all of the sounds that there is, and it's playing at a certain volume, we cannot really say that that sound is loud. It's only loud because there's another sound that is too quiet, or it's too quiet because another sound is too loud. Without lower, there's no high. Exactly, yes. Next up, we have Mary, also known as Lascar, with Toxic. Here with some proggy stuff again. Hope you like it. Not mixed. Let's see. Sorry, I should play this in the... Sorry. Should play this over here. So that there is no autoplay. With this main saw lead, what I would probably do is lower the sustain a little bit, so that it has a little bit of pluckiness to it, just on the volume envelope. Maybe here a little bit of a stronger lead, as opposed to just going back into the saw thing that we heard before. Here I would probably remove the main lead sound, because you're building up to a point and then you probably want to cut everything off and not have one synth play for a little bit longer. Cleaning is nice. This is something that I really like to see, that you're fading out your reverse kicks. This is a trick that I like to use to keep the punch of my main kick. One of the things I also do is I set the transient back a little bit. So usually I'll have this area over here be the end point of the reverse kick, so that it's not sliding up and then sliding down again, but it's kind of sliding into it, and then you still have to click from a higher frequency. Also nice cleaning overall. It looks very clean over here. We'll have another look a little bit later, because this obviously has many different bass sounds. That was very loud thing there. I don't know if I like that. Maybe your kick drum is a little bit too long here. It seems to be bleeding here and here. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this sound playing louder here the first time round. Kind of a strange decision to go into the rolling bass line here. Like, at a random point it feels. Here this riser rises up to a point that isn't really in the structure. Sounds a bit strange. This vocal that you have in here sounds very small, very background. It sounds almost like the singer here is shy. That vocal should be the main thing here, right? I like the vocal. It's a bit strange that you introduce it halfway through the track. I think it would be better if you just wrote the whole track around the vocal like that, or even at the end of the track it's introduced. sure I'm a fan of this sidechain path thingy that you're doing here. Overall, very cool track. As you said, the mix still needs some work, and I agree with that. There's some things that you can improve here. The kick and bass could be a bit louder. The kick head he has active in some parts is too loud. Maybe, yeah. I guess for progressive stuff, I didn't really focus on that, so I don't remember exactly how it sounded. But for progressive stuff, I do hear that the head on the kick drum is a little bit louder than any other type of psytrance. To be honest, I have never had success putting a head on my kick drums. I've never really liked the sound of it. It just feels like it takes the transient and smears it out, where I like sharp transients. I like stuff that is attacky and it has punch and it has focus. And I feel like a head almost always works against that. I think I may have 1 or 2 tracks finished production of that have a hat on the kick, and then I left the hat in there. Enjoyable track. I do agree. Yeah, musical idea is good. It just needs work on the mix. Next up, we have... hey, I've been working on this track for a long time, and I will continue to do so. I've kind of changed a few things since we last listened to it. Let's see how it's today. Your advice is always useful. The Enchanted Stream by Hirumi. I'm sorry for the pronunciation. I already know that it's mispronounced, so I don't even have to ask if it is. But this is The Enchanted Stream. I'll see if I remember this track. Up until this point, it doesn't really ring a bell yet. Make it shorter if you have problems with smeary kick hats. I've tried that so many times. I've tried hats of 2 milliseconds and still have that issue. It just doesn't sound right to me. Very stereo here, maybe a bit too much. You're going to go into the part where it starts to phase cancel against itself. And here you're going into that part hard. So this is really too much. Like if you're here, that's okay-ish. But here, you're going to hear that in mono, it's going to cancel out completely. Or not completely, but it's going to definitely be lower in volume than it would be in a stereo version. I feel like this intro is way too long here. It didn't feel like there's a lot happening. Now we have some cool stuff.
Video games don't influence kids. I mean, if Pac-Man influenced our generation, we'd all be jumping around in dark rooms, shooting magic bullets and listening to repetitive electronic music.
Very strange kick and bass. Lacking any form of higher frequency, any form of content above 1K. That's a bit of a strange idea. You can see the spectrum is looking very odd here. Overall, it's very sub-heavy. Your hats don't really go above 10 kilohertz for some reason, even though this is where you probably want that energy to come from. And then you're building up with your hats. Is that the hat, or is there a clap that sounds very similar to your hat? Oh, here there's another thing to rant about later. The new the new Pepsi bottles that they have. Very loud, random crash out of nowhere. Another one. I don't really get what those crashes are trying to accomplish there. Some very strange stereo wave stuff going on the bass. It sounds like the bass transient is only in the left, or is in the left channel and delayed in the right channel. Like you have a Haas effect only on these, like, I won't even say higher frequencies because there's nothing there. But there's some strange stereo imaging going on this bass line. Definitely a lot of clashing there. You're playing the kick and the bass together, which is a bad idea.
Just remember, we live and we die. We control nothing beyond that.
Yeah, this is a very strange kick and bass. Your bass is also louder than the kick. It should probably be the other way around. Bit strange to hear a hardstyle lead here.
Just remember. We live and we die.
Very loud effects there. Here again, you have some effects that are overpowering the kick and bass, right? You can see the waveform changing when the effect comes in. Not anymore, I guess. I'm also not a fan of this melody here, the chord changing one. We tend to not do that kind of stuff in psytrance because it really goes against the idea, I guess, of how would I say that? The trance-like state. Sorry, the trance-like state of psytrance. They tend to be all in the root note, the synths. The bass was in G and the rest was in G sharp, I think. Now the bass is in G sharp too. Maybe. It can be the case that with the way that people process their bass lines and with the way that they do phasing, that the bass line changes key a little bit with specific types of phase shifting setup. That's one of the benefits of using wavetable basses. As far as I know, wavetable bass lines will always sound in key. Copyright strike, maybe. This was the autoplay. I don't know, is this a popular artist? MRaw. 345 followers. I doubt I would get a strike from them. And if I do, I'll fight it. Then the sound is loud like the other streams, and compare the loudness level on this own, and I hope you will see a difference in sound level. Yeah, as I said, I changed my microphone setup. I fixed my microphone setup so that it didn't change volume between this screen and this screen anymore. Maybe I've set it slightly too loud, but I like to make it loud. Right, I am limiting it at 0 dB and then turning it down a dB. So it shouldn't clip in that regard. I'm not doing any distortion in front of it. I wouldn't think I would. Right, this is my vocal chain here. If I turn off this limiter, yeah, I would start clipping. But this limiter should be here to prevent any clipping from happening because it's limiting at 0 dB. And then in OBS, it should turn the mic down by 1 dB. Famous vocal? Okay, I hope I won't get a claim then. And if I do get a claim, I'll send it directly to SoundCloud because it's their autoplay feature, their stupid autoplay feature that you cannot turn off. That is the culprit. I know for every other use, having a music servers that just automatically plays the next track is obviously what you want. But not having the ability to turn it off is annoying. Like, this is not... SoundCloud isn't Spotify, right? SoundCloud is more meant for producers, for musicians. Try turn it down -6 dB. That wouldn't help, though. There's a little bit of distortion on your voice. Can it be input clipping? I doubt it. I really don't want to change my input gain. But what I can do is turn down the gain here. I'll lower that by like 2 dB here. People are here for your feedback. Understanding you is clearly necessary. Your volume is fine. Exactly. I don't want to mess up the volume too much, but if I'm getting some clipping, then obviously I would like to turn that off. I doubt it's my input gain, because if I turn... Let's turn everything off. Now this is my volume with everything turned off. So you can hear I'm boosting it a lot when it comes to the gain that I'm applying. So limiter turning on. Limiter, the gain into the limiter. This is 11 dB of gain. So this is doing the majority. But even here, I'm not hitting it hard enough that it should distort. Then here, this is the expander. It's doing a little bit more. This is a compressor, which is doing a little bit more still. We have the dynamic compression or the dynamic EQ that I have on there, which should change it. I have my static EQ here. This may be doing a little bit of saturation too, like actual saturation. So that should nice. That shouldn't sound like clipping saturation. It should sound digital. It should sound like analog saturation. And then here, there's like final input gain. So this is the final setup. It's subtle, but the mic seems to distort a bit every now and then. I am still messing around with it. I'm always testing it out, seeing if I can get better settings. One of the things that I've noticed is that I've started paying much more attention to the quality of the stream ever since I started doing conversations with Projector. Like anytime I'm in the process of editing, I often get sidetracked looking at this stuff, trying to get better sound out of my voice. Slick EQ makes your voice way colder than it is. Slick EQ, let's see what it's doing. It should be doing a smile boost, which is lower frequencies, higher frequencies, and turning down the mids. Yeah. So it's boosting the lows, it's boosting the highs, and it's removing some of the mids. That's generally what you want a little bit, because it makes it sound a little bit more broadcasty. You get more of a broadcast voice. And especially with this microphone needs a lot of it, otherwise it sounds very thin, very plasticky. But it's no biggie. It is a biggie for me. I will be dead honest. People say a lot, I get a lot of this. Whenever I ask for feedback about the channel, which by the way, I should probably shout that out as well, the post that I recently did about feedback for the channel. Whenever I ask for feedback, whenever I ask what can I improve, whatever can I make better about the channel, people always tell me like, oh, you're doing well the way that you're doing, and keep it up, and keep continuing what you're doing, keep pushing, that kind of stuff, that kind of motivational stuff. Let me see if I can find the post. Yeah, here. I often get these kind of comments, and I address that over here. While those are nice to get, they don't really help me. And the comments that you have as well, like, it's no big deal. For me, anything that I can do to improve my content is a big deal. Right now I have a condenser mic. I have a very, very cheap mic. This is a bottom of the barrel stuff, but it has always worked for me. It's always been okay. I've always been able to, you know, deal with it within the constraints of that microphone. Listen to the recording after the stream, you'll hear it. I will, yeah, I will listen back this recording. In fact, I'm probably going to even use it for conversations because of that rant that I did at the beginning of the stream. That would be nice to maybe put into a video. anytime I ask for feedback, anytime I ask for improvements that I can make, I get the same comment of just keep doing what you're doing and things will eventually get better. I responded here in this post with the quote from my father that my grandfather told my father, and that my father told me: if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten. I want to get more. So, you know what I mean? I want to improve things so that I can grow. I can provide content for more people. Because right now, over the last half year, the channel has been stagnant in the amount of people that watch. So I want to improve that. I want more people to watch. I want more people to interact with the things that I do. So I want to improve things. And if this microphone is clipping for some reason, and that is causing me even a little bit of loss in quality for my stream, then I want to eventually try to improve that. So this stuff is very helpful. Some of you say it's no big deal. It is a big deal for me because I like improving things. I like stressing out over this kind of stuff. I like, making improvements to the things that I do. I guess it's human nature that everybody just likes getting better or doing better at the things that they do every day. But for me, it should hopefully translate indirectly just doing better at my job. Getting more viewers equals technically getting more income. But maybe I'm tripping. It seems that multiple people are picking up on it. Oh yeah, I wanted to show the microphone that I had. Somebody asked about the microphone. We told you the problem, didn't we? Yes, exactly. And now I'm going to look at what the issue is, what is causing the issue. I'm going to spend the rest of the evening doing that, probably. My mic is a 700. It is at some point time for me to get a newer, better microphone. Yeah, but this is the thing that I bought, this set, essentially. And keep in mind, I bought this with the idea of, okay, I'm going to make 1 or 2 tutorials, I'm going to give that a try, it will go nowhere, and I'll never use this microphone again. And I never really had an incentive to fix the microphone, especially now that we have this stuff over here. So this is AI enhancement, which I use on the videos. I cannot do this in real time, otherwise I would. Of course, right? If I could put AI on my voice during streaming, like there's a thing from NVIDIA, but I have an AMD graphics card, so that's not going to be something that I can use. If there's anything out there like that I could just put on my microphone that would do it automatically for me, I would. I hope your hearing is not affected. I know you know, but watch out for loud volumes, especially on headphones. I never wear headphones. Only reason why I wear headphones is when I'm streaming. Other than that, I'm always on speakers. And yes, I am at very, very low volumes. I take really good care of my ears. I talked about this in one of my conversations with Projector as well. One of the things that I always bring with me if I go to any club or any festival is a bunch of earplugs. And I never enter the dance floor without them. Because I know that if I lose even a tiny bit of my ability to hear something, then I wouldn't be able to do the things that I'm doing now. Right? Hearing is super important in what I'm doing. It's my job, essentially. Anyway, it's probably a good time to go to the next track, which is Vamos MF by Gandom here. Gandom? Do you pronounce the H if it's like this? I don't know. One of the things that I have with the pronunciation is that every person has a name that is coming from a different language. Anyway, I should play it from here. It starts immediately, apparently. I wasn't expecting that. It starts just halfway in the track for some reason. This first part was a little bit empty. And suddenly this thing comes out fully. That's a bit of a strange idea. In my idea, I would take all of those modulations and put them on the last part. And then here, take out this sound so that you can put in that FM sound and maybe some other sounds. Again, a very empty segment here. Like the drums are telling me this should be high energy. Right, we have all of the top drums playing. And then the elements that are in here are a little bit slow. I'm not a fan of this sequence here that you have here coming in 4 bars early. At this point the melody should have stopped playing a long time ago and these other synths should just completely take over. Overall, I would say the kick and bass could be a little bit louder with respect to some of the synths. I don't know how you want to approach this, if you want to turn up the kick and bass and drums, or you want to turn down the synths, but both are good options. This melody thing, stop playing it here. It is playing the same way every time, it gets really boring after a while. Especially because it's so dominant, it pushes everything else out of the way with the way that it's mixed right now. Even the kick and bass is just completely being pushed out of the way in this mix. It's strange that for almost every fill, that sound comes back. They gotta go bye and have a good week. Thank you, same to you. Some strange noise in the high frequencies here. There's just like sizzling every once in a while. It's just a bit off. I was trying to find a place where I can check the cleanliness of the kick and bass. But all of this is high energy stuff. Which, as we've discussed before, means that it's medium energy because high energy is relative. Kick and bass is very pleasing to me. I like it too. The tonality of the kick and bass is very good. I wanted to check its cleanliness, but there's no way to really do that. Again, with this exact same melody, with this exact same modulation on top of it. So for those elements, it doesn't really stand out that it's the same thing. But with that melody, it stands really out that you're just playing the same idea over and over again with the same modulations, with the same idea in there. Okay, so the biggest problem is again the lack of flow. The whole track is essentially at the same energy level because the drums always play. When you have a low energy part of the track, say the first drop that you played, where it's just that melody playing, it's okay to just play the kick and bass without any of the top drums. In fact, it is beneficial because then it signifies to the listener like, hey, this is the slower part of the track and we're going to be building it up over time. Here, the energy is flat. So there's no excitement because the energy never changes, right? Excitement doesn't necessarily come from everything being hyped, but the fact that you're building up to it and flowing down again. As I said before, it's all relative. So if you're always at a certain high level, you may as well be at the medium level or at the low level, because it's only high level if there's some other low level next to it, right, in the same track. And that is currently not happening. And that mainly has to do with the drums, but also with the fact that just elements play everywhere all the time throughout this whole track. This is 6 minutes almost. There's no intro, there's no breakdown, there's no place where the drums don't play in the exact same way. So the energy is always this. It's always flat. And you should probably flow a lot more with that energy. Just reading this over here. But yeah, the arrangement problems in this case is the energy. The arrangement itself isn't necessarily bad in the sense that you're not placing elements in the wrong spot. You're not underusing fills, which is a problem I often hear. People just having a kick and bass going for minutes and minutes at a time without any pause in there. You have your 15 bars of kick and bass and then a bar of fill, which is how you want to do it. But within that arrangement, there's no flow. It's all flat, right? So that is the thing that you could probably improve here. Next up, we have Aquax, which is here in chat as well. I may have mispronounced that name before, but if I did, then I'm sorry. Hey there, here's my most recent track. I feel like this one transmits well the vibe that I'm aiming for with my project. It's not mixed yet, but I'd love some feedback on the track. Let's go. Is this actually going to be techno or is this... Sorry. Okay, intro is a little bit loud in respect to the kick and bass. You should probably turn this up. Kick and bass is almost clean. At this point, it doesn't really matter the cleanliness here. This like little thing bleeding in here, I can see that for other parts, it is nice and contained. The kick itself is nice and contained. So this is not bleeding to the point where it's problematic, right? This one transient over here. The kick and bass is clean, so that's what we're gonna go with. I'm not really a fan of the same, I guess, one-shot thing happening with the same rhythm, same modulation, same frequency for the bit crushing every 2 bars. That doesn't really sound great to me. You can go and then the next one something like that. That is already a bit more exciting, but also moving around where the bit crushing is happening is interesting. I feel like there should be a fill there. And at this point, that element should probably stop that asset thingy. Thank you. Still in the construction. It's always good to have another perspective. You're welcome. I hope it's helpful. Bit strange to hear that like Captain Hook style saw wave brass thing playing in the background, because that's like a very low energy element. I would use that in a one shot in the lower energy parts of your track probably. Here we do have some changes to it, to the melody. But we're again going into the same sound. I'm not sure I'm a fan of using a sound for this long. I don't think I am. Yeah, no, this is becoming really boring, especially because there's nothing else really happening here. If this was the part where the sound started to play, I could see it make sense, but even then I would probably go for one section as opposed to playing it 2 sections. And even then it needs some extra one-shots. But especially because the sound has been playing already for such a long time, it just becomes really boring because it's a sound that we already know. Yeah, here it should absolutely not play. You should really rely less on that acid line there. Your snare is really hard to hear, but it sounds like your snare has a fundamental frequency, so a lower frequency, a lower like peak in the spectrum. I would highly recommend filtering that out. Same rhythm, same melody as the acid line over here. I don't think I'm a fan of that. Because the idea doesn't really change. The sound changes, but it's the same rhythm. That sound is especially inspired by Captain Hook indeed. Yeah, it doesn't really fit in the energy of the track, I would say. If you listen to the differences between a Captain Hook kick and bass and your kick and bass, for example, you can hear that tonally you're trying to go for a completely different idea. Strange, one of these elements is doing a build-up and then the other one is like slowly morphing and then there's like a slow vocal coming in. It's like you put the build-up with half of the elements, you made a build-up, and with the other half of the elements you made a breakdown. This part is way too busy. Why is there still a riser playing? Bit of a strange bass melody as well here. It would probably be a very cool idea to just have this vocal in here. And then have the kick and bass without any melody. That sounds really powerful to me. One of the things that you're doing is that you always have a bass melody playing. And that means that the kick and bass never gets any real solidness. a build down. Exactly. Or a breakup. Yeah. You could call it like that as well, yeah. Even here, I don't understand why you don't just play the bass in its root note, why there's still melody here. Because now this sounds like it's still high energy, when it's clearly not, there's nothing else happening. So this should probably just be, as we say in Dutch, stampen, where it's just, you know, forceful and the same thing that you can really get into the trance. And I guess there's not really a good way to explain it, but when it comes to melodies, one of the things it does is it removes the stability of your kick and bass, right? Because it's jumping all over the place, because it has a groove, it is not really a stable element. Maybe play the kick and bass just straight in the last drop, not just the last drop. There's many places where you should probably play the kick and bass straight. Especially if you want to have this track mixed into a set with other tracks, then it's almost crucial that you do that, because otherwise the melody is going to sound strange on top of the other bass line that you're mixing into. The main idea is, the idea from the riser still playing after the drop came from Bungee Jump, also from Captain Hook, very different from how they use it there, but it was just a general inspiration. Yeah, but the way that you did it, it really didn't make a lot of sense, because you have to ask yourself, what is the point of the riser, right? The riser is meant to rise into a certain point. Usually what you'll see is that it rises into a point of hype, and then there's this little moment of suspense happening of 4 to 8 bars, sometimes 16 bars of suspense, and then the kick and bass comes in full power on its own, usually, so that the kick and bass has maximum space, that you can really absorb the kick and bass. Eclip actually mentions this in one of his videos. People underestimate how powerful a kick and bass is if it's just kick and bass playing on its own, root note bass line, no melody, nothing whatsoever. Just having kick and bass in there allows you to just dance to just the kick and bass, and then you can build it up again. Yeah, just playing bass line on root key is very underestimated by a lot of people, and people tend to either throw a lot of things on top of it immediately, or as you do in your case, you're going all over the place everywhere with different bass melodies, doing all kinds of crazy things. We never really get to appreciate the kick and bass in this track. A lot of useful ideas, thanks. You're welcome. This is the annoying bit of air conditioning. I turn it on when it gets too hot, and then after 10-15 minutes, how long has it been? Maybe a bit more. It gets too cold, and then I turn it off again, and then I essentially wait until I feel it's too hot again. And I'm just oscillating between being too hot and too cold. Next up, we are at what looks like the last track for today. I'll take another quick break after this track, and then we'll see if there's more people submitting music. I No Outro Yet by Mateus, also known as Better Message, and this track is called Memories. Very dark texture, I like that, but I think the atmospheres are too loud. The kick is getting a little bit overpowered, but the bassline really falls back behind the atmospheres. Honestly, it feels like the BPM of this track is slightly too low. It's always annoying changing the BPM. That has a lot of different issues, so I wouldn't change it here. But that's maybe something to consider for your next production, is to raise the BPM a little bit. Yeah, these atmospheres, I think, are way too loud. You can take those atmospheres and turn them down maybe by 5, 6, 7 dB. Maybe even more. Because they're now overpowering the synth as well. There's like a synth playing in here, which is really quiet, really in the background. It's really shy, and this atmosphere, the thing that is supposed to be like a detail element, is standing over it like, I'm overpowering you. You know what I mean? The wrong priorities in your mix. I know you have like this fundamental here for the snare, that is that like nice talking to the snare, that thing. But if you have this thing over here, remove that. Remove that part from the snare. That is just causing you trouble when you're mixing it with the kick. And it doesn't really have any reason to be there, in my opinion. What is this really short bass thing that is happening here? I think this may be part of the reason why your bassline sounds so strange. Or not strange, underpowering. It's just not long enough. It just plays maybe half an oscillation at full power, and then it immediately goes down in volume, and it's never heard from again. In this over half of its note length, it is not even playing, and in that other half, basically it's playing at full power for a quarter of the time that it could. Like, you could have this flat up until here and then roll it off if you wanted to. That's really extended, then you're going to get a reconnected feeling, so then you're losing that staccato feeling a little bit. But even here, if you want that staccato feeling, make sure that this one, this spike over here, and this oscillation over here just hit full power and then fade it out like this, as opposed to it fading out like that. Because now it almost has no energy. Also didn't get a real idea of intro transition drop. It's like, oh, this is probably the drop already. To be honest, I didn't notice that. Here it happens, yeah, here there's nothing that announces the drop happening. Personally, I'm not really a fan of that, I would say. Usually I like knowing when to jump into the music, like jumping back into the dance. When you go out dancing, stuff's suddenly happening and you're like, oh wait, here is where I need to start dancing, then you need to catch up, then you need to get into the groove. I'm personally a fan of already being in the groove before the main drop actually hits. That is often the reason why when people have their kick and bass filtered in and they have it so loud, I often say like turn it down by 5 dB as opposed to remove it completely, because turning it down by 5 dB means that, or 5-6 dB below the main kick and bass, means that you have that moment where you can get used to the beat, right? The filtered kick and bass comes in. You can say like, oh, this is where I am in the rhythm, this is where I am in the dance. And then there's usually a little pause, or it goes straight into it. But then the kick and bass hits at full volume. You still have that impact of the kick and bass being like bigger and louder and stronger than it was before. But you already know when you need to start dancing and how you can start dancing. How can you achieve that with the bass, what you explained before? Just make it longer. That's the main thing. You can make it longer and then just resample it and make sure that the fade is different. Here it looks to me like you're with your rolls bleeding into the kick. So it doesn't... you may have turned off the sound here, but it looks like it's still like bleeding into it up until the point. What I would do here is also add fades to this here, so that it just from here kind of fades down in volume to silence maybe here. Half a millisecond before the transient, a millisecond before the transient, some short amount of time before the transient, it goes to silence, and then you have the next transient. So that way you get maximum punch, maximum power out of all of your transients. You're right in that there's no outro in here. That is true. An outro would be nice. Overall, I like the ideas. I like a lot of the sound design that you were doing. The mix was also very close to being perfect. Like a few things could be filtered out, that kind of stuff. But I think I gave you enough details to work with in the things that you could maybe improve about the track. There are, of course, always details that you can improve. For you guys, if you guys want the stream to continue, please submit some more tracks that I can listen to them. I can click this away so that doesn't annoy me. But I'm giving feedback on anything, so even if you're not into psytrance, do make sure that you guys read the rules over here. You do that by, of course, clicking on here, and then you get this. There's 3 rules. 2 are hard rules, in that if you don't abide by this rule, your track will just not be played. And this is, I prefer if you do it that way other than a different way. This is not something that makes me dismiss your track. But if you break these 2 rules, I'll just simply not play your track. Yeah, I'm going to go back into the mix and take a quick break. And then once I'm back, I hope that I have some more music to listen to. Otherwise, I don't know, end the stream, I guess. Go do something productive with my life. I don't know. The options are endless. It's probably a good idea that I play this track over here, since this is the next track that is releasing on Eclipse. This is releasing in just over a week, on Tuesday, on my birthday. It's releasing, the 4th of June. So yeah, if you're not subscribed to the Eclipse channel, of course go subscribe. We recently hit 1,000 subscribers, but that doesn't mean that the journey is over. We can always use more people supporting us. I'll turn the volume up this time so that you guys don't complain about that. And I'll take a quick break. And probably once this track is over, usually my timing is pretty good on this, I'll be back and we'll continue listening to some of your guys' music. If you guys continue to submit stuff, of course.
multiplayer, to me, that's one thing. It's a fun game. But where the real food is in the social aspect, where you get to meet people and play them a game and have a fun, competitive game. You do the best you can, but if you don't win, you won anyway. Because when you lose, you win too. Because if you're paying attention, you learn stuff.
Oh. Then you guys didn't hear whether all of the questions that I just asked. That's okay. I just said, like, is it better if I dance with the track? Yeah. So as a... What did I say? Now that I have to say it all again, it's hard to remember. I said... I joked about me dancing and that kind of stuff. And then after that I said... I'll just continue listening to tracks as long as there are tracks. And then I'll end the stream. So the next track is Neurotransmitter version 11 over here by BRZI. It's strange that I was muted, because I did give me the sign that it was okay on my stream deck. I guess it didn't show me the check mark. It just showed like the button being pressed. That's very strange. Anyway, let's play the track. I like where this is going. Sounds nice already. I don't know how loud the kick and bass is going to be in the drop itself. But if it's going to be full scale in the drop itself, then you're doing something right. Because now it's a little bit lower in volume. Yeah, in this case it's the same volume. So what I would recommend is lowering the kick and bass before the drop by, as I usually say, 5-6 dB. I love that this is resampled. I love that it is super clean. It also sounds very, very nice. The tonality is very nice. I like that there's a little bit of stereo play going on the kick and bass. You can see like in between the things that there's always a little bit of stereo happening. Not just from whatever atmosphere and stuff that's playing. At this point I would probably slowly bring in the snare. And here you can have like a bit more of a build up. Snare could be a little bit louder here. Could have a little bit more impact. A little bit more ch-ch. It's actually not resampled. Nice. That means you're doing wavetable stuff, I assume? Because you do have the processing on there and it goes back to silence. So that suggests either resampling or wavetable. It looks wavetable. Because there's no phase shift over 180 degrees. Welcome to the stream, by the way, BRZI. Very well done with the submission here. I really like where this is going. Some sounds could have a little bit more power, like this main lead over here that is playing the main melodic thing could have a bit more saturation, a little bit more grit. Maybe a little bit more volume. Usually with saturation, when you're boosting the volume, you compensate. So what you can do is maybe compensate like 2 dB less. It's a single oscillation resampled into a wavetable, yes. But still some dispersion on it. Interesting. That sounds like a recipe for unclean bass lines if you have a wavetable and then process it again. But I guess it just works here. Maybe you're dispersing in the higher frequencies or something like that. Like if you put the disperser at 30-40 Hertz, then you're definitely going to have issues. There's a very loud thing happening there.
Brain consists of billions of neurons, specialized cells.
Yeah, this vocal needs to be compressed more. It's jumping up and down, which makes it hard to mix in.
One neuron across the synapse. In this way, they control all our feelings and emotions.
You can hear the vocals hard to follow, to hear. Even though it's like louder in some points, you probably want it to be a little bit quieter in those louder points and a little bit louder in the quieter points, which is exactly what compression is going to do for you. Here again, the main melody doesn't really come through.
And time for dopamine to spread happiness all over the brain.
The vocal could also get a little bit more high frequencies. Didn't do the fine tuning yet. Yeah, that makes sense. You are getting pretty close. Another thing that you should consider is adding a little bit more air by virtue of either increasing the volumes of your drums or using a plugin like Lufticus, which is a free plugin on your drums. If you do something like this on your drums, you won't hear it in this case because this is not the audio that you guys hear. But if you set the plugin up like this with 40k on just your top drums, you get a nice spicy high end. And right now it's just, I guess it's like at the low point of what you want, but you usually see a little bit of a boost in the spectrum over here. And right now the drums aren't really biting yet. They sound a little bit dull still. I think I'll create an AI vocal for this. This one is ripped from a documentary. Honestly, I like this. I like the vocal that you have here. It just needs processing. Usually what I find is with AI vocals, people write their vocals. And with written vocals, they sound very unnatural. What I found for psytrance is that writing your vocals, like I did for example with my album Stories of the Mind, it doesn't really work. It doesn't really give you that human factor that you often look for in vocals. So I would caution against that. I think you can process the vocals in a way that they make sense with the track, that they fit well in the mix. Overall, I really like the track. I really like the things that you're doing. It all just feels a little bit dull. It could use, as I said, a few elements could use a little bit more saturation. It could use a little bit more spice in the high frequencies. The vocal itself needs a bit more compression, which is more of a mixing thing. But overall, it sounds really good. I like it. There's also, I guess, not really a moment where the synths really, I guess, I don't want to use the word overpower, because then it may sound like I'm trying to get you to raise the volume of certain things. That's not really what I'm aiming for. I want more grit out of it, I guess. There is an AI tool where you can upload a vocal sample and it will just change the voice, the speed with how the words are spoken, and the pronunciation stay the same. Thanks a lot. You're welcome. I think, yeah, that could be cool. I just noticed personally that whenever I write vocals, they sound very cheesy. They don't really work for psytrance. They lose that human factor. And what I didn't use AI vocals for my album. Back when I wrote the album, AI vocals weren't really a thing yet, like generating just a voice from scratch. Maybe they were in some corners, that kind of thing, but it wasn't as massive as it is today, the whole AI space. But now going back into my album, I noticed that the message that I want to give is very clear with each track. But it's delivered in a very cheesy kind of way. You can hear essentially that it was written for the music. Whereas so many psytrance tracks use a vocal that isn't necessarily written for music, that you can hear that difference, right? Like, it's usually a documentary that is sampled, and in a documentary people tend to, I guess, like, talk somewhat unclearly sometimes. There's pauses in there. There's maybe sometimes a weird inflection that they have in their voice that is not done. I have my voices recorded by voice actors. Like, I sent out to 4 or 5 voice actors the specifications of what I wanted and all of the text that I wanted and how I wanted them to say it and stuff. And when it comes to voice actors, and the same is true with AI voices, they tend to try to get you a very clear voice, which is not necessarily what you get in like a documentary or if somebody is just talking like this. Like if you sample a Joe Rogan podcast, which often gets done, right? It's just a guy talking with somebody else, right? Just the way that I'm talking here, doing the stream, that kind of stuff. There's not really any thought being put into how does this vocal have to sound for it to sound professional. If I'm, say, recording my video, or I'm recording a voiceover, or I'm recording vocals for a track, then there's a lot of thought put into, okay, how does it have to sound? And you hear that in the vocal. I think that lack of care of how the vocals should sound is part of the identity of Psytrance. That it's not perfect in a certain way. I don't know if that makes sense. We don't have more tracks here to listen to. At least not now. It has been 3 hours, so that is a decent amount of time to stream. I could finish it here unless there's somebody that really wants to submit some more stuff. Otherwise, I'll probably just end the stream here. We had quite a few tracks today. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I guess it wasn't the most amount of tracks I've ever had. But I remember when I started doing feedback streams, I don't know if anybody else remembers that time. I used to do feedback streams and then I would have something else to do on the side, just because I wasn't getting enough tracks to continuously listen to music. So I would make presets or make sounds or make kick drums for half an hour to an hour, wait for 5 people to submit a track, and then I would listen to all 5 of them, and then for the next hour to an hour, I would have nothing to do again. And now the feedback streams for the last, I guess for the last year now, maybe June, something like that. The feedback streams have just been continuously me listening to music, which I like. I kind of like the exact level that I am right now with the amount of music that I get, because it's a manageable amount of music. I don't get overwhelmed with music when it comes to the feedback. Like I don't get, it's not like I put out the message of, hey, I'm going to do the feedback stream. In a couple of hours, you guys can start submitting and whatever, right? The YouTube notification for the stream goes live. And I don't have 100 people dropping into the Discord and all submitting their track at the same time, and me opening the stream and going like, oh, what do I do now? I have so many tracks. I don't even know how I would handle that at that point. I guess you'll if you grow, it at some point will just overpower. I had a few streams where sometimes I would be behind maybe like 10 tracks to listen to at a certain point in the stream. And I would feel like, oh, if this continues like this, if there's so many people submitting their track like this, at some point I either need to skip people that sent multiple tracks, or I need to, I don't know, start denying people submitting earlier, like closing the queue halfway through the stream so that I can finish off the rest, stuff like that. And I started doing that, of course. At some point I just, when I try to end up finishing the stream, I write, like I do over here, queue closed, the message, and that means that is kind of my starting point for the next stream. Yeah, I think I'm going to end it here. I'm happy with what I did today. I hope you guys are happy too with all of the feedback and just the general chatting. We did have a nice few chats in here. What I might end up doing is using this stream for conversations. Normally something that I don't do because the feedback stream doesn't lend itself well for just chatting. But this one, I might be able to get an episode out of that with the rant that I did at the beginning about Premiere Pro. So yeah. Just going to pop the message in here, so that people know that submissions are over for today. And then I'm going to end the stream here. As I said, I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that the feedback was helpful and all of that good stuff. Is there anything else that I need to say? Not really, I think. I don't think I have anything else that I need to promote. So yeah, that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.